Well, hello. Welcome back to another lesson. Today is lesson number 8. And this lesson is a continuation into our third unit. This lesson is so important. I think it's going to have to do with everything that's going on in the world today, with how we are going to respond to climate change and create a better world moving forward. From last lesson, we were talking about how some of the largest corporations make money through shipping and selling products around the world. So a little bit of review. What are TNCs when I use that acronym? Okay, so think about what some of the biggest corporations are around the world. TNC stood for Transnational Corporation. Okay, companies that operate around the world. You can see some in this image here. And can you describe to me what we meant by free trade? So if Samsung is making electronics over in Japan and then they end up at Best Buy in Edmonton, what is a free trade agreement and how does that impact the cost of those goods when they go across a border? Our learning goals for today's lesson. You need to be able to define and understand what sustainability means. I want you to be able to describe ways in which humans can be more sustainable in our lives. Analyze how globalization has impacted our environment. This is going to be one of our last lessons, and you guys are going to have a final project in which you're going to look at, well, how our way of life impacts our world and our climate. Right now during coronavirus, I want you to think about, as everybody is mostly working from home, that we're not flying across the world, there's no cruise ships going on, there's nobody going on vacation. What do you think's happening to our environment during this time? Has the pandemic been better or worse for our climate? I want you to think about that. Okay, we'll have a video that we'll watch during one of our online classes that's going to go over that. So today's lesson's all about the way we live and the impact we have on the world. Okay, we know that through globalization, business and trade and people move around the world and we're more connected. But what does that do to our actual environment? The more we trade, the more we buy, the more we consume, it's having a devastating effect on our Earth. So as human beings, we're creating too much carbon pollution. We're putting too much out into the atmosphere. And what's happening is that's being trapped in our atmosphere, which then in turn traps in more sunlight that can't escape. And this is causing our planet to warm. Now it warms ever so slightly. And this is known as climate change. Just because the Earth is warming doesn't mean every place gets warmer. It actually means some places will get colder, some places will get way too hot, and some places weather is wacky. It's back and forth. It's cold, it's hot. It has no idea what it wants to be. This is called climate change. Take a look at this infographic. There's some really crazy stats here that you can see. The difference is what happens when our climate rises by half a centigrade, so half a Celsius, which is not very much, but that leads to, for example, 170% increase in flood risk. It might lead to rising sea levels as Arctic sea ice starts to melt. As sea level rises, okay, even just by 56 centimeters, which is not very much, that's, like, 56 centimeters, a couple feet, 49 million people who live along the coastlines would be affected. So there's all these major costs to our society if we have small changes in their environment, which is why we as a society and as you guys as young people growing up, it is so important that we start to tackle these issues and think about the way we live. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how the way we live really causes great impacts to our environment. And one is what we would call big container ships polluting into our oceans and our atmosphere. Now, we've all talked about in class about where we get our clothes from, where we get our electronics from, shoes, food. Most of it comes from overseas. Okay, most of the stuff we get is not made in Edmonton. Anytime something comes overseas, it has to travel on these giant container ships. Okay, they have those sea cans, and they get stacked like Lego blocks. They can fit thousands of them on a ship, and these ships are often the length of a couple football fields. They're absolutely massive. One container ship causes as much pollution as 1 million cars do in one day. Think about that for a second. 1 million cars in a day. There's tons of these ships floating around the oceans, going back and forth between Asia, North America, Europe, Africa. Click on the little video here, and it's going to show you a little more about these ships. Another big one is our plastic that we use and the pollution that's created. Now, when you have a plastic bottle, that doesn't just biodegrade or dissolve. It's going to take thousands and thousands of years to go away. And most of our daily products we use are made with plastic. Okay? My headphones here have plastic in them. My pen has plastic in them. Okay? There's hundreds of articles and items in my room right now made with plastic. Most of this plastic does not get recycled. Eventually, it ends up in our oceans. This means our oceans have entire, almost like floating islands of plastic garbage that are killing off coral reefs, killing the food supply of our fish and our mammals in the oceans, which in turn is going to affect our rain cycles, our wind. It affects everybody, the people on land, not just on living in the ocean. This video here really highlights how big of an issue ocean plastic is moving forward. And it kind of talks about a little bit of what we need to do to reduce that. We talked about t-shirts and clothing a lot. You guys have seen this video before, but I want you to watch it again. And this time, what I want you to look for is see if you can find 5 ways that pollution is created just by making a t-shirt. So by buying a t-shirt, maybe it only costs you $15. But how many times did that t-shirt help create pollution along the way? And these are kind of the ways in which we buy products that impact our world. So my message for you guys during this lesson is not we can do better, we must do better. It is on us to live a better, more sustainable life. This quote here, the earth is what we all have in common. So it doesn't matter if you're American, Chinese, French, Canadian, whether you whatever color of skin you have, what religion you have, we all have the earth in common. We all live on this place, and we need to take care of it, because as we destroy it, we will not be able to sustain ourselves. So what does sustainability mean? Well, it means anything you can do for a long period of time without harming yourself or others. So I want to give you an example here. Take a textbook or any heavy book that you might have in your house. How long could you hold your textbook out with one arm straight? 20 seconds, 1 minute. You can't do it forever, no matter how strong you are. Therefore, it's not sustainable. Sustainable is something that you can continue to do. So I'll show you an example. How long could I hold this up? If you go completely straight. Okay, it's been 30 seconds. I'm starting to shake. Okay, it's been a minute and I'm done. I'm going to ask you guys during our online lesson how long you can hold out your textbook without bending your arm. It's not sustainable. Just like the way we are living on Earth is not sustainable. We cannot continue to do it forever. Sustainability has to do with the way we live on Earth. We have over 7 billion people, Those 7 billion people need food, water, shelter, and some of us and the way we live use more resources than others, right? Think about the heat and the water you have in your house, the electricity we use, the cars we drive, all the different plastic water bottles we buy, okay? Some of our lives have a bigger impact or footprint than other people. So we need to find new successful ways to live. This is a great video that kind of explains sustainability, and it's going to talk about 3 important pillars of sustainability that we'll get into in the next slide. So watch this video to find out what those 3 pillars are. The 3 pillars of sustainability. The environment. This is the idea that we need to protect our natural habitats, we need to keep clean air, we need to protect species, and we need to reduce our carbon pollution. Our economic pillar. We still need to create jobs, but we need to start businesses that actually help the environment. We need to build new renewable energy sources, things like solar, wind, and geothermal. Energy that we get for free, essentially, from the sun and the earth, not energy that we have to create by digging out of the ground like oil and coal. Social aspect. This is ensuring that all people have access to clean water and food, that all people have access to education and equal rights, and that we can live together and start to share our resources and share in all of the things that we consider valuable to us. The idea is that we can't focus on one or the other. We need to balance these pillars. We can't just focus on economics. If we only focus on the economy, okay, then we're out of balance, because if we focus just on making money, then it might continue to damage our environment and our society. This video highlights what sustainable development is and how we can start to continue to create jobs and create a better life while helping the environment and helping each other. So I want you to think in this example, which pillars are out of balance and how do you know? So for example, if on one side of our balance beam we have building new oil sand developments instead of investing in greater wind turbine farms, then if we focus on that, then the other side of is that we deplete our boreal forests and pollute rivers and streams. So which pillars are out of balance here? I want you to now create an example, okay? What would it look like if we were to balance the economy and the environment? So what would an example look like if we made sure that we're helping create jobs, right? But also helping protect the environment? What kind of jobs, what kind of things would you need to balance? I want you to think about that for your example. Renewable resources. So renewable resources are things you can renew. They're sources of energy that we always are able to get more of. They can be used in a way that does not create as much pollution as coal, oil, and gas. Now in Alberta, our economy is very much tied to oil and gas, and many of our jobs depend on that. And so I'm not saying we need to get rid of oil and gas. It's important. We still use those in a lot of our daily products and transportation. But what we need to look at moving forward is investing and using solar and wind and geothermal more and more to hopefully one day focus solely on those resources. So what can you do? One of the things you can start with, and the easiest thing is with your money, you can shop local. So you can buy goods that are made to close to where you live. That could be supporting local small businesses, okay? You can try to recycle and reuse. Avoid buying products you have to throw away after only one use. So try reusing things a little more often in your house. Reduce the amount of car travel you need. Reduce the amount of water you use. Reduce the amount of plastics you use. Okay? So those are some things where you can get started. And the biggest thing is you can try and support companies and businesses who are helping the world. And try not to give your money to big businesses support those smaller local businesses that are trying to help the world. The final thing you'll do in your assignment is you're going to analyze this cartoon here. There's a lot going on, but I know you guys can do it. So first and foremost, you're going to make some sentences in which you analyze what do you see, what symbols, words, how did the artist draw it, okay? Then ask yourself, what is the perspective? Is this cartoon for or is it against globalization? And how do you know? And what is the overall meaning of this cartoon? So you'll see here we have what's called the free trade and globalization machine. What's it creating? Consumer junk coming out one end. It's using global cheap labor coming in the front. It's using up natural resources coming in here. This guy is saying full speed ahead. And what's coming out the other end? Pollution, CO2 emissions, and environmental destruction. So what does that say about economic globalization, according to this artist? Once you've reviewed your slides, I've got our online lesson 8, sustainability questions, and you will find that cartoon at the end. I've given you some sentence starters to get you started while analyzing that. So I'd like you to use the parts in blue to help you. Okay guys, that's it for this lesson. Thanks, and I look forward to talking to you at our next Google Meet. Take care.